Final Destination Bloodlines. How long has it been? It has been 14 years since the last Final Destination 5, that they finally decided to come out with a new one. You guys know this already. And in that time, the writers of Final Destination have made people afraid of planes.
You fucking brat! Oh shit!
Mostly log trucks. Roller coasters. But now they're making you afraid of even being born. I'm sure you guys have all seen the Final Destination Bloodlines trailer, which basically includes Grandma sees a vision, saves a bunch of people. Those people go on to have families, so death needs to take out all the families because they were never supposed to exist. Side note, if I look rough, it's because I am rough. I am looking rough. It is 6 o'clock in the morning. I just got back from the gym. I have a new job, so I am trying to work out my YouTube schedule with the new job, with working some 12s. It's a whole process, so bear with me. Alright, we're moving back on. This review will contain spoilers, so if you guys haven't seen the movie, go see the movie, and then come back. I'm not going anywhere. So now that we have all seen the movie, let's go ahead and kind of give a short review of it. Yeah, this is going to be all over the place. Alright, the first thing I want to say about this movie, it was funny. I did not go into this movie expecting to laugh as much as I did. There were times I had to, I had a sweatshirt, you know. Us girls, we always bring a sweatshirt in case we're cold. So I had my sweatshirt like covering my mouth because I was laughing so much at some of the scenes. They really went heavy into the comedic tone, or a comedic tone of this movie, which was funny. It wasn't cheesy. I didn't think it was cheesy. It wasn't cringy, if people are still using cringy nowadays. It wasn't any of those things. It was actually funny, which I appreciated. You know, I think that they went in the earlier movies, especially the third one. I think the third one went way too serious in most of the scenes. I think the one emo guy, I think he had pretty like comedic wits about him. But this one, it was I loved it. And this character right here was like the main comic relief, but again, not in a stupid way. So I guess I'll go ahead through the plot line. I will go ahead and say what I thought worked really well, and quite a few things that I think that didn't work very well. And I'm gonna warn you guys now, I am a very nitpicky bitch. So that's probably why some of my movie reviews are a little bit like, okay, like let's go away with reality for a second and just believe this storyline. That's fine. You know, you can suspend your disbelief for a little bit. Nothing wrong with that when you're watching a movie. That's why they're there. But I'm just warning you, okay? Because that's where my brain goes. So when we go into the things that did not work, they do work if you disbelieve, if you, whatever I just said. If you think, hey, we're not really thinking on too much reality or too much of the nitpicky semantics of things. With that out of the way, I'm going to try to review this movie as best I can without having it in front of me like I usually do. So, as you guys should already know, we see the tower scene. The tower scene honestly gave me anxiety. I hate heights. Fun fact about me, I absolutely hate heights. So, a lot of the anxieties that Iris, who turns out to be Grandma, that Iris is feeling is like, I would just feel that on a daily basis just looking up at the damn thing. As soon as they pull up, you start to hear Ring of Fire, so and automatically that just automatically made me laugh. You know, Iris and her boyfriend, soon to be fiance / husband, they pull up and Ring of Fire is playing on the radio, which I thought was hilarious. Turns out Iris is pregnant. Oh my gosh, shocker. There are some like cliche tropes in there, like, and you know, this wise black lady comes up and she goes, like, Iris is feeling nauseous. So this, Singer comes up and she just looks at her and goes, "How far along on you?" It's like, bitch, you don't know I'm pregnant. I could just have been sick from the tower. I would be throwing up. I kind of get annoyed with those tropes, but anyway. But yeah, she's pregnant. And it turns out that she's going to be pregnant with Howard. Yeah, Howard, the guy with the lawnmower. That's the first kid. But I'm getting ahead. She's pregnant. Anyway, she gets proposed to. They're all happy. They go downstairs. They dance and they jump on a glass fucking floor and don't expect it to crack. Okay. That is how the whole tower scene really begins. They are dancing on a glass floor, billions of stories above the ground, and they all die. But it turns out, as we know, that is the Vision. So she gets everybody off. It kind of does jump a little bit to where, you know, when we see the premonition, this is when we cut to Stephanie seeing the premonition from years ago. And so we're like, oh, okay, that was, I liked that. I liked that it turns out to be Stephanie first that we kind of get to know rather than Iris. It was just a nice change. That's all. So Stephanie goes home because she's in school, but because of this dream that she's been having, she can't do her work, whatever. So now she's home. She finds out about her grandma, who everybody in the family has tried to essentially forget. Like, forget even exists. And we learn from Howard, who is the firstborn, we learn from him that their grandma, Iris' grandma, his mom, the one who had the vision in the first place, was so obsessed with death that she kind of made the two kids' lives a living hell. She said, he said that she would like send them random obituaries, constantly make them afraid of even being alive. So Darlene figures out how to find grandma, and I'm going to say this first. I want people to know this first from me. Stephanie's license plate is the same as Carter's from the first movie. I saw it, I recognized it because I had seen those clips so many times. As soon as it came on the screen, I'm like, that's Carter's car. So, fun fact, there are probably a lot more Easter eggs, but that one was the first one that I caught. So yes, the license plate that Stephanie uses is Carter's license plate. So Stephanie goes and visits her grandma. That's where we get the scene of her handing her the book. But some things that made it so funny is that Grandma, Iris, is talking to death as if he's right there. Or as if he's basically in the skies in the heavens. So she built this cabin, along with, spoilers, along with, I'm going to keep calling him Death, because I think he's still Death, with Death, Tony Todd's character. Tony Todd's character helped her build this cabin, because it turns out he was a little boy that was also in the tower. He was the singer's son. So he also escaped death, which is supposed to be the explanation of how he knows so much about it, but I'm not convinced. I think he's Death. R.I.P. Tony Todd. So she essentially made this cabin to be as death-proof as possible. And it literally gets to the point where as soon as Stephanie opens up the door, it's kind of like Death weasels his way in, because he does some shit that makes this beam of light start to try to start a fire. Iris smells the smoke, and she literally looks at the sky and says something like, "You're not gonna get me this time, you son of a bitch," and she makes it stop. She makes death stop. And so Stephanie is just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this woman is crazy. Like, my uncle Howard was right. Like, she's fucking crazy. And so Stephanie goes to leave. And this is when Grandma opens up the door, and I don't think I can find a clip of it, but Grandma's house looks like a death trap. There are spikes everywhere for some reason. There are spikes everywhere. It looks like a fortified little cabin. Okay. So, as Stephanie is leaving, Grandma steps out. She doesn't step out. Grandma takes a step, and the winds of death are blowing. Literally. The winds of death are blowing, and you know, because she's been doing this for decades, she's like, okay, I see this has fallen. I see this wind thingy that says north, south. I don't know what they're called. This thing is blowing. Okay, so like she's like, all right, as soon as I step out, I know I'm going to die. And that is what happens. So grandma runs out, gives Stephanie the book. That's where she goes, everything you need to know is in this book. Shit falls and she gets stabbed through the face. Which, looking back, is kind of why they are all alive to begin with. It also turns out she has cancer, so she would have died anyway. Fun fact, she thinks that's why Stephanie is having her premonition, because she got cancer or was diagnosed with cancer 2 months ago. I guess through Tony Todd's help. Because she doesn't leave the house. So, okay, what? Suspend your disbelief. Suspend your whatever. You guys know what I'm saying, okay? If we just don't think about how would they have tested, maybe he took her blood. You guys can detect. I think you can detect cancer with blood tests. So whatever. Anyway, it turns out that she has cancer, so she would have died anyway, and that is why Stephanie had her vision. She said, I think my gift passed on to you once I was diagnosed with cancer, because the 2-month line added up. So she runs out, gives Stephanie the book. Everything you need to know is in here. She gets blasted through the face, which causes way too much blood to be on Stephanie's face for that, but okay. I mean, her face is like covered in blood for a spike did go like through her jaw, but like her face is absolutely covered, as if she dunked her head into a bowl of blood. And there you go. Okay, whatever. We come for the deaths when we watch these movies. Let's be real. We come for the unique deaths. This is when Stephanie kind of begins to believe Grandma. And this is when you kind of see in the trailer her putting up the big things with all the lines. And she figures out, I guess, that, and maybe Grandma wrote it down in the book. They don't really explain how she knew this, but we figure out that, you know, these were the people that were in the tower that survived, and now death is taking them out one by one, which leads me to my other point. Why is death going so slow? Death is death. Death can do this and kill them if he wants. Why does he have to follow a list? I guess we can go ahead and be like, well, even death has to follow a set of guidelines, or else he would just run willy-nilly. He could have made these things happen simultaneously that would have killed them in the order, because again, these movies love their orders. That could have killed them in the order. He could have. He's death. But no, it took him decades. I don't know, maybe it was a fun little project for him. I don't know. Coming up with new ways, I guess. I will go through all of my grievances at the end, because I think that'll be better than kind of like putting them willy-nilly. So let's just go ahead and continue. So her family doesn't believe her. And then Howard dies, which, did he die? And I can't remember if he died first or before or after the meeting. I think he did. I don't know. Howard, the uncle, Stephanie's uncle, dies. And so Stephanie is like, this is the order that we're all going to die in, because it goes from oldest to youngest. So that would be Howard, Howard's kids, Darlene, who is Stephanie's mom, and then Stephanie, and then her little brother Charlie. That would be the order. So they figure out that Eric is supposed to be next, and that is where we get, again, nobody believes her. That is where we get the tattoo parlor scene. But Eric survives, so when Stephanie goes and sees that Eric is still alive, she goes, well, what the hell? You were supposed to die. And he goes, I don't know. I guess I'm just good, I guess. But it turns out that Julia is the next to die. Her death is the one where I had to like stifle my laugh, because it was so funny. Her death is her jogging down the sidewalk. She gets knocked in the head with a soccer ball, and there's a garbage truck, and she gets knocked into a garbage can. But What made it so funny is that you just see her legs kicking up in the air and her screaming upside down in the garbage can as it's being picked up and, tossed into the back of the truck. And yeah, she essentially gets crushed to death. And it is, yeah, it was something. I don't have a word for it. I'm not that smart to come up with a word. It was something. My friend made a good point that sometimes when a death is happening, they'll cut away for like half a second so you can see the other character's reaction. Not in this movie. They did not cut away to her head and arm being popped, essentially being popped. Um, so yeah, shit made me laugh though. Again, it was just her legs kicking up in the air is hilarious. So they're having a little family meeting. Like, oh my god, this is real. Like, it happened in the order, kind of like how she said it was Howard. It skipped Eric, and then it was Julia. Like, oh my god, we're dying in these ways. Um, so they were like, well, why didn't Eric die? Eric is the oldest, but it skipped him. And this is kind of where the whole theater laughed. We were only like 20 people. It was a Monday night. So there was only like 20 people, but the whole theater laughed at this part where the aunt, uh, Brenda, okay, sure. The mom kind of says, well, your father and I were having issues and you're not actually his dad, or you're not actually his son. I got pregnant by somebody else. But he loved you like a son, and that's great. Um, but Eric says, well, who's my dad? And the mom says, Jerry something or another. He goes, Jerry? Is that why he always wanted to play catch? And he storms off. It was so funny. The whole theater, all 20 of us, erupted into laughter. Well, erupted isn't the right word. I still laugh about it to this day because it was so funny. Now everybody believes Stephanie that, oh my god, this is real, kind of a thing. So, why do they go to the hospital? I forget, but they end up going to the hospital. I do not know why. I absolutely forgot the reason why they end up going to the hospital. Oh, that's right. They go to the hospital because they find out about Tony Todd. I don't know, through movie magic, I think. They find out about him, and it turns out he has upgraded from just being a morgue person to actually doing like autopsies and probably pathology stuff. So, poor Tony Todd, actual Tony Todd, he looked very frail in this movie. I know he has passed away. Okay. Oh gosh. Yeah. So I had to look it up. So I guess Tony Todd died from stomach cancer, and you can tell in this movie he looks very frail. Most of his scene is him sitting down. I think he only gets up in like the last like two sentences of his lines. I'm very glad that he decided to come back and to come back into this movie, even though it was his last movie. And this is where they learn about, again, the stuff we already know. This is where they learn about the design and stuff like that, and how all of this good stuff. So he knows that since they're there, that Iris has died, and in the premonition, he was the last to die. It was Iris first, and then it was him. Like, I think she got stabbed by something first, and then he fell to the ground. So he knows that since they're here, his time is very limited, and he helped Iris build her little safe house thing. And this is where we learn about the Kimberly from the second movie. This is where we learn about Kimberly and how she is the only one in the whole franchise who escaped death. And you might be wondering, but in the third movie, it said that she and Officer Burke died in a car accident. And I asked my friend about this because that was a big thing when I'm like, no, it said they died in a car accident. I guess that was a alternate ending choice, which does not make it canon. So Kimberly and Officer Burke are the only ones who have actually escaped death in these series. And she did that by fully dying when she ran the car into the river, and they had to shock her to bring her back. So that is what they try to do to get death to stop. They take Bobby? Is his name Bobby? Bobby. And Bobby is extremely allergic to peanuts. Like, deathly allergic to peanuts. So, long story short, this was another little funny part. This is the vending machine part where, you know, his brother Eric, who's not on death's list at all. My God. He's like, all right, let's just have you eat some peanuts. So he goes to the vending machine and he starts to type in, you know, the numbers for just a bag of peanuts. And Bobby goes, dude, if my one time to eat a peanut, I'm not going. It's my one time to eat a peanut. I am not going to eat unsalted bag of fucking peanuts. And then he chooses the Reese's double stuffed peanut butter thing, and that kind of got a chuckle. He goes, "I want that." It's like, that's fair. So it is also said by Tony Todd that anybody who interferes with death is also kind of fair game. So because Eric is sort of interfering with death, with Bobby's death, because he's actively being like, hey, you're going to do this, I am going to save you, rather than just being like, kind of a happy coincidence. Like, the whole Kimberly and Officer Burke thing wasn't really planned. It kind of was, but it kind of wasn't. Like, they are like planning this shit out so that Death's little spooky wind can hear them. There is an MRI scene, which goes way too high, even for experimental purposes. That's what it kept saying. You know, something happens, it pushes the power on, it keeps going up, and it goes way above the magnetizing power that it should. And it says something on the screen like, you know, past a certain point it says experimental use only, and then it keeps going up. It's like, why would it even go that high? Why would we make a machine that would go that high? So Eric is caught in the crossfire, because if you can't tell, Eric is a punk boy who has all sorts of piercings everywhere. So as the magnet is going off from the MRI machine, things everywhere on him are being pulled. And it was very funny to see his shirt get bigger like this. You're like, oh, okay. And then his pants got bigger. And you're like, oh no. So he gets pulled towards the magnet through all of his piercings. And there is a wheelchair that gets pulled through him because of the magnetization. That is how he dies. He dies because he's trying to interfere. And then Bobby dies because of the spring that goes through his head. So they're off the table now. So that leaves Darlene, Stephanie, and Charlie left. They all decide to go to Grandma's house because that was safe. They all go there, and this scene also made me crack the fuck up. So Stephanie is, I guess, the only one out of everybody who can really see the signs of death, just like Alex. So they're driving to Grandma's house. They stop right in front of the gates. Death is a-blowing. And Stephanie literally says, I will never forget this line as long as I live. She literally says, he's about to make a move. It was so funny. Death is about to make a move. All right. I don't know why he doesn't just explode the freaking RV they're in. Stephanie rams into the gates. They try to make it to Grandma's cabin. Something crashes. I don't know. Now Stephanie is kind of stuck. But she knows that if Darlene, her mom, is at least safe, then she and her brother are safe. Because again, that is why the family survived as long as they did. Because Grandma didn't die, so death was halted at Grandma. So she says, just go. Her brother and Darlene go. But the only reason Grandma survived as long as she did in the cabin is because she knew the cabin. Death didn't have it didn't have some type of spell or barrier around the cabin that prevented death from getting into it. Grandma was just highly attuned to the cabin and any kind of thing that was out of place, so that she knew death was about to make a move. So this whole thing kind of didn't make sense to me. Like, why are you guys going to the cabin? You don't know the cabin like Grandma does. Like, you guys could essentially build your own little safe room or stay at your own house, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. Whatever. Um, things happen. Um, Darlene gets smushed. There's a lot of. No, there's not. Darlene gets smushed. So Charlie runs to try to help Stephanie because she would be next. And this one, I heard through the grapevine that a lot of people were kind of upset about because Darlene almost drowns, which is kind of just people are kind of saying it was kind of a cop out or reminiscent of the second movie where Kimberly drowns, which I could see, but there's only so many ways we can almost die. Charlie gets her out, and we see we start to see Stephanie, kind of fading out, kind of like we did with Kimberly. But then we see her be revived, and Charlie's like, "We did it! Hooray!" It is now a few months later. As I have said before, these movies love to do 6 months later or whatever it is. Charlie is getting ready to go to a prom. And this scene also was funny to me particularly because one of the dads of the girls that's going to prom kind of says, "Hey Charlie, like, you saved your sister. It was really lucky you were there." And Stephanie's like, "Yeah, like, he saved my life. I drowned." And this guy goes, "Well, no, you didn't." Turns out she just became unconscious. He said, "You would have passed out before you've actually died." So then we get the wide-eyed stare between Stephanie and Charlie, and a train, which off-screen got derailed. We see that happen off-screen. So the derailed train comes barreling down this neighborhood to try to kill Stephanie and Charlie. And I just have to say, what the fuck? Death is trying so hard to kill these kids, he destroys an entire neighborhood. Death is dramatic. But it kind of made me laugh because in the end, the thing that kills them is not the train barreling down at them. It is two logs that I'm assuming the train was carrying that come over the train and go pff, pff, which really pissed my friend off. He won't stop talking about it. That pissed him off. He goes, "Those damn logs." I'm like, hey, it is the logs that give people the most fear nowadays. Thanks, Final Destination. So that was the end of Final Destination Bloodlines. It was very fun. And I say that because I said that to my friend when we were let out of the movie theater. I said, "That was fun." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, it was a fun time. I would highly recommend to go see it. There were a lot of melodramatic moments that made me chuckle. It's just the whole thing of like, someone says okay, so for example, the dad, Stephanie and Charlie's dad, he's just like, "I need to go take a walk," and then he just like looks down and slowly starts to walk away. It's just melodramatic moments like that were very funny to me. It happened a few times. Now to go through my grievances, the things that don't make sense, the things that would make a fun 2-hour movie at least 4 hours long if they went through all of these points. So one of the best things that happened in the movie is that a shitbag little kid does get killed, and I love that. There is no footage of him in the trailers, so just know that he is in the very beginning and he dies. Thank God. The biggest grievance that I had was, how did Iris know the names of all of these people? If you remember, I mentioned that Howard the Firstborn said that once they distanced themselves from Iris, Iris started to send them horrible obituaries of dead people. So Iris knew to look up these people, and we see the big spread, and I'm assuming that they were of news articles of these people dying. So how did Iris know these people's names? Because she and her boyfriend slash husband, when they go to the tower, they are not on a list. So they kind of sneak in. So they don't really know anybody there. Actually, I don't think they know anybody there. They don't say hi to anybody. So one of my friends suggested that maybe she stole the guest list, and that's how she was able to keep up. Another person suggested it's a small town, so maybe she knew. But we see her being taken away by security once she's like, this is gonna fall, it's gonna break, and all of that stuff. We see her taken away by security. So I don't know how she knows who these people are. Again, you could go with the theory of it's a small town. But there's like 80 people there. Even in small towns, I don't know 80 people. The next thing is the order. We see multiple people falling and dying at the same time. They go splat on the concrete. How could you possibly pinpoint, okay, John Doe was the first splat. Betty Boop was the second splat. How could you possibly keep track of that? And in addition to that, once they are all saved, once she has the premonition, once they get out safely, the biggest thing is, why does it still take Death so long to kill everybody? So the way it worked is that Death is essentially letting these people have children, and then he needs to pick them off. But he could have taken them all out at once. I mentioned this in the beginning. I forget. 40 minutes. That was like 40 minutes ago. Death could have taken them all out essentially at the same time. So I don't know why it takes him so long. But yeah, those were my main big grievances. It's mostly at the beginning. But it was a very fun movie. I do look forward to buying it when it comes out, just so I can see more clues. It was also very heavily, I don't want to say, it was heavily CGI'd, but I don't want to say it in a way of like, well, of course it is. I wish they would have done some more practical effects, especially when it became very bloody. I feel like they heavily relied on it a lot. And I really miss using practical effects. So I guess somebody did the work. It wasn't me. Was able to look at all of the newspaper clippings, because my original theory was that the other movies were tied into this movie, as some of the survivors of the tower had children of the people that are having the premonitions in the other movies. Does that make sense? And so I guess someone did the work, and the only name that came up as a repeat was Luton, who was the teacher in the first movie. I'm still not going to dispel my belief that somewhere in these people that they had Alex, they had Kimberly, they had, I don't know the girl's name in the second and the third one, who knows, but they had those children. I'm not going to I'm not throwing that out the window. I think it's a fair theory. But that is all the time that I have for today. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. I will be recording my third Final Destination 3. Oh my god, I can't. The third Final Destination movie, I will be trying to record it tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Again, new work, new schedule, kind of trying to balance this whole thing, so my apologies for them being kind of spaced out. But I will be doing that. I'm really excited about doing that kind of makeup. And I hope you guys will like it. I do need ideas for the fourth and fifth movie makeup, because there's just a lot of smashing that goes on in these movies now, especially in the fourth one. Just a lot of people being smashed. I can't be smashed. I can't do smashed makeup. So let me know what you guys if there's a certain death. I'm thinking about maybe redoing a third one from in fourth's movie review. I think I can get away with that. But the fifth one, I really don't have a clue. Um, so give me some ideas. All right, you guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.